A surging rental crisis. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian Heiser here, and welcome to another episode of Heiser Says. Grab your stein of coffee because I want to have a look at this article from news.com.au, which is highlighting, well, the rental crisis that's growing more and more in Australia, sadly. We saw in just the challenges of housing affordability how many people are in housing stress because they need to spend so much of their money on rent. Now, here's the issue. I'm going to bring up this definition, everyone, just so you're aware of it. Housing stress, essentially, it's the lowest income households spending more than 30% of their gross income on housing costs. Okay, and we're going to see that more and more when it comes to, well, to rent, let alone even buying a house, just rent. It's just the thing. You can't, the median income is just not going to be enough anymore. You're going to have to move. But then when you move, the regions are getting more and more expensive. Australia is in the grips of a housing crisis, one with vulnerable groups in particular just trying to get out because of this issue. Low and modest income earners are in the grips of a housing crisis as the COVID-19 pandemic causes rent to surge, according to a new report. Researchers from the Australian Council of Social Services and the University of New South Wales found that soaring rents was an issue across the country, especially in regional areas. The research also pointed out flaws in the nation's investment in social and affordable housing, noting that while some states' investments would have more than 23,000 new homes, more than 400,000 homes would still be needed of affordable housing. Now, here's the thing. It shouldn't just be social housing. This shouldn't just be government housing. It should be affordable housing. We need to flood the market with more land. We need to make it easier for people to develop land. We need to create competition to sell land. That's the thing. We need to get rid of the red tape. We need to get rid of the green tape. We need to get rid of the bullshit people need to jump through to get a house built. While rents declined sharply in some inner-city suburbs, apartments, at the start of the pandemic, from mid-2020, they've increased, and by August 2021, were accelerating at more than 8%, the fastest pace since 2008. But the report found the rapid rent acceleration wasn't just confined to the cities. According to the report, regional rent rises were now outpacing metropolitan areas, particularly in New South Wales, Victoria and Queensland, surging ahead by a massive 12.4% to August 2021. For regional Australia, the proportion of tenancies low-income tenants could afford had declined from 41% to 33% over the course of this year. ACOS Chief Executive Cassandra Goldie said most state governments had done a good job in protecting people who were homeless during the COVID-19 crisis, but demand was not wavering. Community organisations across the country are telling us about the growing level of despair experienced by people trying and failing to find affordable accommodation for their families in both metropolitan and regional areas. The situation for those on the waiting list for social housing feels increasingly hopeless, as individuals and families struggle to keep a roof over their heads in the face of rising private market rents or are forced to stay in circumstances that are not healthy or safe. Ashley Stevenson, 65, has been homeless and couch surfing in Sydney since April last year, but her living situation has been precarious for much longer. She lost her job 8 years ago and said she had been unable to find employment despite being eager to work and sending out hundreds of applications. Now, here's the thing. 65, she's gotten to this age. How much money has been taken away from her by the government? It made it even harder to get into a property. How many taxes has she paid that has been used to offset taxes of others who've negative geared properties? This is the problem. This is what happens when you have such intervention in the market, guys. Okay? She said she has language, and this is why you want people owning a house. This is why you want everyone owning a house. You want to get house ownership as broad as possible, because in retirement, it's more important than super. I don't care what anyone says. Having your own house, owning it, paid outright, is more important than having a lot of super sitting there. It's a lot harder to piss away a house than it is super, isn't it? Ms. Stevenson said she had languished for 7 years on the New South Wales social housing waiting list with no end in sight, and she was often forced to choose between rent and food on job seeker welfare payments. Having a place to go home to every day, how do you describe that? Imagine if you didn't have somewhere to go home to tonight, she said. I've been volunteering with the homeless, strangely enough, for the last 6 years, so I know exactly what's going on. It's just ironic that I've become one of them. She said having a stable home would make a massive difference to every part of her life, and she would like government to provide as much housing as possible. Okay, here's the thing. This is the problem. People want the government to provide the solution. Government are the ones causing the problem. They're getting in the way of projects, everyone. There's a reason why you've got all these big developers trickle-feeding houses out so they can maximize their return, because it costs so bloody much to get something off the ground. I don't know who leads the idea that poor people are to blame for their own situation and should be punished for that. It's not about being punished. It's about, understanding that people... it's about ensuring you're a lesson to others, that people realize that the government isn't going to take care of them, that it's all bullshit and lies, that you've got to do everything you can to take care of yourself. That's what it is. And we need to move away from growing socialism that's happening here in Australia, because inevitably it's going to lead to disaster. I don't know if it's even possible, to be honest. Now I'm getting too cynical. This young generation is so authoritarian. Keegan Nikotra, 29, a fellow job seeker recipient who is on the brink of homelessness in Melbourne's western suburbs, echoed the same concerns. Some of us got here through mistakes, some of us got here through random chance. We're all just trying to get out, he said. In the report, ACOS recommended the federal government urgently commit to funding a national social housing construction program, boost Commonwealth rent assistance, and continue to support and extend affordable housing rental incentive programs. So more intervention. What about, here's a novel idea, what about we start phasing out negative gearing on property and we increase the tax-free threshold? Or here's another one. What about if people for their first home can write off the interest? Just the first one. What do you think? So it proposed a major Commonwealth government capital funding boost to deliver at least 20,000 new social housing dwellings and a 50% boost to the Commonwealth rent assistance payment to low-income households to relieve rental stress. It also proposed the creation of a new investment incentive to support construction of new affordable rental properties for people on low and modest incomes. Well, they could make construction cheaper. They could remove a lot of the onerous green and energy efficiency requirements from houses. Pull all that out. You don't need it. Get rid of all of the subsidies and all of the solar panels that they're putting on anyone's houses. We don't need that. People can pay for it themselves. You need to reduce the cost of these things, guys. Oh. Federal Housing Minister Michael Sukkar said the Commonwealth was making significant inroads to support social and affordable housing, with more than 13,000 social and affordable properties supported by the National Housing Financing and Investment Corporation since its establishment. He said about $9 billion was expected to be spent on housing and homelessness in the upcoming financial year. Yeah, but how many houses? Under NHFIC's infrastructure facility, it has approved more than $3,000 million to support the delivery of 6,600 new social, affordable and market dwellings. The statistics clearly demonstrate that the establishment of NHFIC with the Affordable Housing Bond Aggregator and infrastructure facility is one of the most significant national investments to support social and affordable housing in recent history. State and territory governments have primary responsibility for social housing and homelessness. Now, here's from this housing report that I want you to have a look at. The proportion of household income required to pay rent. For houses, it's gone up to 33.1%. And even for units, it's at 30.9%. So both of those are in the range of housing stress. So we've got a surging rental crisis, everyone. And if we have a look here just at the regional New South Wales asking prices, have a look here. Weekly, this is buying property prices. Look at how they have surged, guys. In region, this is in Moomba. We go here, if we reload, this is weekly rents in Sydney. weekly rents in Melbourne. So let's have a talk about this. Once again, we're seeing more calls for government intervention. I'm not surprised, but I think long term, we need to have market-based solutions for this, and we need to encourage people to be in their houses. If you want social housing, it should be via charity. It shouldn't be via the state. Remember, charity, people can voluntarily donate to these organizations through philanthropy and giving. Government takes money off you through threat of jail. It's different. It's stealing money off these poor people. And, imagine how much they're paying in taxes on petrol, food, GST, everything. Smokes, alcohol, through their whole life. Then the income tax, even the money they give them, the welfare money they give them, they tax. And then, they want to be the ones providing them housing, stepping in the way. Nah, not a fan. Guys, check out this video about homelessness in regional New South Wales. What's interesting is the cause of there being a crisis. But what did the local councillors do before this crisis to fix the problem? Anyway, take care, guys, and I'll see you all next time. Bye for now. It's good coffee.